Imagine discovering that the man you've been in love with for 2 whole years never existed. For Loveline, a 55-year-old widow in Ohio, that gut-wrenching truth came too late. After she had already wired away every dollar she had saved, a staggering $95,000, to a man who promised her love and left her with nothing but silence. Before we dive in, tell us in the comments where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe to Bite Crimes. Your support helps us keep bringing you chilling, real-life stories that educate and protect us all. Now sit back. Let's begin Loveline's story in full. Loveline sat at her small wooden kitchen table, the only light coming from a single lamp above her head. It cast soft shadows across the faded linoleum floor. Her phone rested in her trembling hands. For the 100th time that week, she scrolled through old messages, sweet goodnight texts, promises of a future together, photos of a man in fatigues with a warm smile and strong jawline. His name, or so she believed, was Captain Ryan Miller, a soldier stationed overseas. For 2 years, his words had been her comfort through long, lonely nights. He'd call her my angel, send her pictures of himself in dusty army bases, talk about the day he'd come home so they could finally meet. Friends warned her. Her sister once told her bluntly, "Loveline, this isn't real. No man who loves you needs you to send him money." But Loveline only smiled through tears. "He's real. He loves me. He just needs help. You wouldn't understand." Loveline's husband had passed away from a sudden stroke 7 years earlier. Since then, she lived alone in their modest 2-bedroom house on the outskirts of Dayton, Ohio. Her children were grown and had moved away. Loneliness crept in like an unwelcome guest. When she first stumbled across Ryan's profile on Facebook, a friend request she almost ignored, it felt like a spark in a life that had grown quiet. He wrote her long, thoughtful messages, asking about her day, her late husband, her dreams. She found herself laughing again. For a while, Ryan was a light in her darkness. The first time Ryan asked for money, Loveline hesitated. He said his unit's funds were delayed, and he needed just $1,200 to cover a sudden medical expense for one of his men. "I'll pay you back the minute I get home," he promised in a voice that sounded so earnest over phone. Loveline wired the money. That single decision opened a door she couldn't close. What do you think so far? Would you have believed Ryan's story? Tell us your thoughts in the comment below. Your experiences might just save someone else. Over the months, the requests grew. Travel costs, customs fees, an emergency surgery after a supposed roadside explosion. Each time Loveline scraped together the money, pulling from her late husband's life insurance, selling jewelry, even cashing out part of her retirement savings. Ryan always promised, "As soon as I'm back in the States, I'll repay you. We'll finally be together." Loveline's friends grew distant as she brushed off their concerns. Her sister stopped calling after too many arguments. The man she loved had become the center of her world, even if she had never met him in person. The final request came in the middle of a freezing Ohio winter. Ryan claimed he'd been approved for leave but needed $15,000 for military clearance fees to exit his deployment zone. He said this would be the last payment before he could come home. Loveline looked around her quiet home, then at the framed wedding photo of her and her late husband. She made the transfer. Days turned into weeks. Ryan's replies grew shorter, then stopped entirely. Loveline sat at her kitchen table night after night, refreshing her messages, praying for a single reply. Her eyes grew red and swollen from sleepless nights, but hope, fragile and stubborn, refused to leave. When the truth finally came, it arrived not in confession, but in the form of a phone call from her bank's fraud department. They suspected she'd been targeted by a romance scam ring operating out of West Africa. Loveline felt as if the ground had been ripped out from under her. She had been so sure, so certain of Ryan's love. Now, she was left with an empty savings account, a mountain of debt, and a heart broken twice over, once by loss and again by betrayal. Neighbors whispered. Some shook their heads in pity, others in judgment. Loveline barely left her home. The silence in her house felt louder than the promises that had once filled her phone. When she finally contacted local authorities, she learned she wasn't alone. The FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center had logged tens of thousands of similar cases, with losses surpassing $1 billion annually in the United States. The agents told her the profile photos she had received weren't Ryan's at all. They belonged to a real U.S. Army officer whose images had been stolen and reused by scammers across dozens of fake accounts. Loveline stared at the printed report they handed her, her fingers tracing the photo of the man she thought she loved. He was real, but he had never spoken to her. In early spring, a breakthrough came. FBI cyber investigators traced a digital breadcrumb, a single email login that linked Loveline scam to an organized network targeting hundreds of lonely women across the country. The agents told Loveline that one of the suspected ringleaders had just been detained at JFK Airport in New York, trying to leave the country. But here's the twist. The man in custody wasn't who anyone expected, and what he revealed about the scheme would change everything. The man detained at JFK wasn't the smooth-talking soldier Loveline had come to know as Ryan Miller. He wasn't even a soldier. His name was Eric Oba, a 29-year-old Nigerian national who had entered the U.S. on a student visa years earlier and never left. According to FBI cybercrime agents, Eric wasn't a mastermind. He was a recruiter, a go-between who helped coordinate a web of romance scams operating out of multiple countries. When agents confronted him, Eric didn't deny he knew about the scam ring. But the biggest shock came when he admitted that he had never once messaged Loveline. The person she had texted for 2 years, the Ryan she fell in love with, was someone else entirely, still overseas. Investigators dug deeper. The scheme was far more sophisticated than Loveline or even local authorities had imagined. The FBI Cyber Division found that the group used a rotating team of chatters, trained scammers who specialized in seducing lonely men and women online. Each chatter worked in shifts, impersonating the fake soldier to keep the illusion alive around the clock. The photos, the military background, the heartfelt late-night messages, all part of the script refined over years of exploiting human emotions. What made Loveline's case particularly heartbreaking was that her scammer had read every post she'd ever made on Facebook about missing her late husband. He used her own grief to draw her in. What's your take on this? Do you think authorities should push for harsher penalties for romance scammers who prey on vulnerable victims like Loveline? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Your voice matters, and it may help prevent others from falling into the same trap. Eric's arrest led agents to a trail of emails and cryptocurrency wallet addresses. Those breadcrumbs guided them to an old warehouse in Lagos, Nigeria, that served as a call center-style hub for dozens of ongoing romance scams. Working with local authorities, the FBI coordinated a raid. Inside the warehouse, they seized laptops, phones, fake passports, and scripts detailing how to manipulate victims' emotions. Among the evidence were screenshots of Loveline's messages, proof that she had been one of their prime targets. When agents showed Loveline some of those screenshots, she broke down in tears, not only because of the betrayal, but because she realized how completely the scammer had studied her life, her fears, her hope for love. For months after the truth came out, Loveline attended counseling sessions offered by a local victims support group. She said it felt as though she had been in a 2-year relationship with a ghost. It wasn't just the money, she told a local TV reporter. It was every good morning text, every promise. It was all a lie. Back in New York, Eric Oba was charged with conspiracy to commit wire fraud, among other counts. During the trial, prosecutors presented evidence of millions of dollars stolen from dozens of victims, many of them older Americans, widowed or divorced. Loveline was one of the key witnesses. She sat in the courtroom, her hands clenched as she testified about the messages that had once made her believe in a future with Ryan. The defense argued that Eric was just a small player and shouldn't be held responsible for the actions of the overseas ringleaders. But the jury wasn't swayed. After a tense 2-week trial, Eric was convicted and sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. According to experts who testified in court, romance scams are among the most devastating forms of cybercrime because they target both the wallet and the heart. Dr. Lisa Warren, a forensic psychologist, explained, "Victims are often isolated and vulnerable. The scammer becomes their confidant, their emotional anchor. By the time money is involved, the victim's judgment is clouded by trust and attachment. This psychological manipulation is why so many victims, like Loveline, ignore friends' warnings until it's too late. Loveline's story sparked conversations in her community about online dating safety and digital literacy for older adults. Local churches and senior centers began hosting workshops on recognizing scam red flags, such as anyone who refuses to video chat, invents constant emergencies, or requests secrecy. Law enforcement officials emphasize that reporting scams early can help authorities trace funds and protect future victims. In an interview for a public service campaign, Loveline shared the hardest lesson she learned. Real love doesn't ask you to empty your bank account. If someone online avoids meeting in person and keeps finding reasons to need money, it's not love. It's a con. Her willingness to speak publicly turned her painful experience into a warning that has already helped others avoid similar traps. The case also underscored the global nature of cybercrime. The FBI, U.S. attorneys, and international partners now use cases like Loveline to train investigators in spotting cross-border fraud networks. Though Loveline never recovered all of her lost savings, she has rebuilt her life slowly, focusing on healing and raising awareness. She says she's still open to love someday, but only with someone she can meet face-to-face. Thank you for staying with us through this emotional journey. If Loveline's story moved you or opened your eyes to the hidden dangers of online romance scams, please like this video, share with a friend or loved one, and subscribe to Bite Crimes. Your support motivates us to keep bringing you these chilling yet educational true crime stories that protect and inform. And remember, the internet can connect us, but it can also deceive us. Stay alert, stay informed, stay safe.